and say goodbye.
Yep.
I'm done. All right, let's do a Dinger Zone. I figure we'll go Matrix first this week.
Yeah, that seems to be the right move. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he ain't taking no pills, Sweet John Kovacs from the internet.
No, please, immediately, give me that red pill.
All of the pills. And Bruce Leslie is not here. He is on Christmas vacation. Here's an odd thing. The day after Christmas, when we're recording this, all of a sudden, our jolly guy is gone. Coincidence? Probably, but you never know. I'm just saying, all of a sudden, like, he gets real tuckered out and can't come on. I get it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Santa's also well-traveled.
Santa's been to Russia. But Sean and I, we got this held down here because this week we are talking The Matrix Resurrections. I'm always going to mess that up because it's like
you want to call it Reloaded so bad.
Reloaded 2, Electric Boogaloo. There's nothing. We don't have any of those things. Or is it Resurrection? Resurrections? Resurrected? I don't know. But the fact is you could have gone out to the theaters or stayed home and watched this on the old HBO Max. And if my theater's any indication, people are at best staying home and watching it on HBO Max because no one's coming out to the theater to see this. Everybody's still seeing Spider-Man, but we want to see if it's worth us, talking about on the show, and if you should watch it if you haven't yet. And of course, we're going to talk about our review for it and what our Patreon supporters think of it as well. I like this, asking them, what we're talking about, ask them to review it, and so we can get just beyond our three limited perspectives and stuff. So
I think we need to start doing more of that. I think that's a good turn, man.
But I like it. But before we do, you can be one of those people over at patreon.com/HMP. Doesn't matter what level you join up at. You get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. Essentially, all it is, people, is just whatever you feel this show is worth, put that down in a number form, send it to us, and get more stuff in the meantime. For example, this week on the Dinger Zone, Sean and I talked all about Christmas movies and Adidas shoes. I mean, so it's about as normal as any Dinger Zone would be, I suppose. But but it's a good time, and really, it's the way that this show it keeps me from killing myself. So I appreciate all of you. We had no idea anyone would be listening to this show for any amount of time. Let's on the fact that we're rolling on 8 years, and that you guys have been so fantastic in supporting us every single month. So I do want to say a big thank you to all of those guys. And of course, if you can't do that, just review us on iTunes, share the show with friends and stuff like that. That's all you can do. And we appreciate all of you fine folks for doing that. So patreon.com/HMP. Join up today. We really appreciate it. And of course, grab your mama's iPhone and give us her 5-star review on iTunes. I think you can review us on Spotify now, which I'm surprised Spotify hasn't taken us down with all the copyrighted music that I put on this program. But until they stop me, I'm going to keep rolling, baby. I don't care. But apparently that you can throw 5-star reviews over there. I don't think they can write anything yet, but you can at least rate it. So I don't want to. Well, I was going to say go out and rate that, but that might put their eyeballs on us and go like, we're shutting that show down on Spotify. So, what the hell with you, Spotify? I don't care. We'll still be continuing to make shows here. So Patreon.
I love you, Spotify. Please come buy us out.
Yeah, if I might start changing some tunes if they would, just plop down a little bread for us. That's all. Just make that happen. Patreon.com/HMP. Until the meantime. So let's.
Like you're a jazz musician.
Yeah, I'll just keep to my regular beat. All right, let's get into it. Here is the trailer for The Matrix Resurrections.
We can't see it, but we're all trapped inside these strange repeating loops.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
But this is the moment for you to show us what is real. I remember this.
So deja vu. And yet it's obviously all wrong. Maybe this isn't the story we think it is.
They taught you good. Made you believe their world was all you deserved. But some part of you knew that was a lie. Some part of you remembered what was real.
It's so easy to forget how much noise the Matrix pumps into your head. Something else makes the same kind of noise. War. What happens to Neo? The most important choice in Neo's life. It's not his to make.
She believed in me. It's my turn to believe in her.
Part of me feels like I have been waiting my whole life for you.
If you want to see Trinity again, fight for her!
I saw this in a dream. My dream ended here.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for The Matrix Resurrections. Well, you know, let's do this anyway. Why not?
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce is not here this week, but I'm sure in his absence, Sean has cobbled up something together. Sean?
The Matrix comic books, written originally by Lana and Lily Wachowski. It was released on Albris Comics in 2003. It is a trade paperback with 13 original stories and one prose story, all collected into one big title. When you look on Goodreads, there are no reviews towards it. There are people on Amazon who gave it a 91% rating. I don't know what that means. It is a continuing saga of the people trying to get out of the Matrix. And I would imagine that it isn't terrific just because I have never heard of it before.
No one's ever read it.
And that is your comic book connection this week. Adam, do you have anything to suggest this movie?
I do, because if that comic book connection, which was thorough and well thought out, if that wasn't enough for you, let me sell everybody on this overly late meta sequel, because this movie's got everything. We got Johnny Utah, Jerry Hogarth, Candyman, King George, Colleen Wing, Doogie Howser, Entanglement Pinkett Smith, Wednesday Addams, Rachel from Family Matters. We got the worst of 90s new metal fashion still lives. Did you like The Matrix? Well, we kind of do bits of that again. The worst looking John Toll cinematography since Jack. This quote, which I loved: "This is my husband, Chad." We got The Matrix meta commentary, or is it more missed shots than an episode of G.I. Joe? Horrible old makeup, royalty-free retro clips. This movie's got everything.
So I'm taking from your listicle that you don't like this movie.
I'm very confused about this movie. Let's start here real quick, just so people might have a point of reference for us of what our thoughts on the first three Matrix films are, and the Animatrix. We covered all of those during 2020? Early 2020?
Yeah, during lockdown.
Lockdown stuff, we were like, hey, we got a lot of extra time here. Let's cover some movies, and we covered all three.
Become a Patreon member. You can listen to those episodes right now.
Go back through those archives and pick out those ones, man, because we covered all three movies and Animatrix stuff. So, when was the last movie out? 03? It feels right to me because I remember being in film school when it was going on because we watched 2 and 3.
It's awfully close to that if it isn't 2003.
I feel like I'm fairly certain that's what it was, and I think like most people, the first movie everybody really likes, or at least has at least pretty decent fond memories of and everything. And 2 and 3 have their problems, but they're just not the first movie. I think
It is 03, by the way. That's when the last one came out to theater.
Fairly certain on that one. But we at least I like the first one like a whole bunch, and then the others they are what they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the first one is just an absolute treasure. You could not own a DVD player without owning also the first Matrix.
It was
movie.
like the first one that was like really that killer app that was like, oh, this is what this new DVD stuff can do, and they had all the special features and everything, and it looked fantastic. It was a DVD seller, to be sure.
And as ridiculous as this all sounds now, it was an important movie. I can remember very specifically being a very big nerdy nerd and thinking just how important that movie is. And it's like I have stated several times in the past, it is one of the very few movies, Spider-Man No Way Home being the other one, that I forgot that I was in a movie theater watching a movie when I first saw the first Matrix movie. And so it holds a near and dear place in my heart because it is just so great that first time you watch it. But now, everything is ruined with the Matrix because you can't just come into it sideways and not understand anything that's happening.
If this was your first Matrix film, you're out of luck, Jack.
Yes. And if you're watching the very first Matrix and you don't, like you have to know something about it only because it has seeped into the national culture. Like it's just part of culture. And so you know the things that you know about that movie, and that's good and bad because now somebody can't come in clean to that movie. They're going to know bits and pieces about it before they ever come into it. And so they kind of know that when they make the Matrix Resurrections, like they know that they're not going to be able to do the same sleight of hand that they did in the first one. And that's good. Okay. So here are the new rules. Here's how we're doing it now. I have so many questions when it comes to this movie that I just don't understand. And hopefully you and I can get it through it together today, Adam, because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't hate this movie. A lot of people seem to hate it. At least that's the discourse I'm seeing online. But it's not something that I'm going to try to revisit. Like I'm sure if they pump out a fifth one, I'm going to see that one too. But it's not going to be something that is required viewing for me. I'm going to see it at my leisure.
Yeah, it's interesting because like right now on Rotten Tomatoes, Matrix Resurrections is 66% critics, 64% audience. Mm-hmm. So I kind of agree, but I've seen more people, and the people that I've talked to that have seen it have all kind of had that same sort of reaction of just like, I don't think, it doesn't feel like, and I wouldn't go so far as to say that I hate this movie, because I don't hate it yet.
Right.
But I am in the journey that is to decode what this movie is trying to say, if indeed that can be something to be decoded, if you will. Maybe I might learn to like this movie a little bit more than I do. Right now, as I see it, when I watch this movie, it's like there's a lot of really neat and interesting ideas in this movie, and one that I think could be applied to the world of The Matrix very easily and very interestingly, I think. But for me, the problem with this movie, at least through like 1.14 watchings, because I think I started to watch a little bit again, and I was just like, you know what? It's probably better that I take a half-hour nap before I do the podcast, so I'm a little bit more excited and ready to go. So I was like, let's do a nap again. But I do plan on watching again because there's a lot going on. It doesn't necessarily handhold you, which is good, but at the same time, too, it also makes you scratch your head going, what's going on with this movie? What's happening here?
My first major question, because it's what every good film has, where they're trying to say something. I cannot figure out what this movie is trying to tell me.
Well, the biggest first takeaway that I got from that really turned the key for me, at least from like an initial standpoint, that made me go like, oh, this is what we're doing. This might be a very interesting avenue to go down, and then they don't necessarily pull it off. It's when Neo. All right, so for those of you that may not have seen the movie yet, spoilers alerts. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I had to put the Sega in there. That just lets me
press all the buttons, Adam.
My finger hit the mail button as soon as it hit the other one. But so Neo is like has made the Matrix into a video game, or at least there was the thought that this was actually a video game.
Right.
Now, essentially, he sits down with the guy who plays King George from Hamilton. He's like the new Agent Smith in this. But as a Hollywood kind of guy and everything, he basically puts out that Warner Brothers, and they name check Warner Brothers, saying Warner Brothers wants us to do another Matrix game. So in this game is movie, I guess, so to speak. They want us to do another one, and if you're not going to do it, they don't care. They're going to get someone else to do it, so do you want to do it? And that's ultimately what this movie feels like, is someone said, hey, Wachowskis, guess what? We're going to be doing another Matrix film. They're like, excuse me, that's kind of ours. They're like, yeah, we know. That's why we're giving you right of first refusal on this. Do you want to do this? Because if you don't, we're going to be giving it to someone else who will do it. So you could step in and do this if you want to, because one way or the other, we're going to be doing this. That's what it sounded like, and it feels like it was very interesting to have the movie kind of basically tell you that of like, hey, the reason we're doing this is because we're kind of having our hand forced at it.
Sure, but what I'm trying to get to, that part I understand. The part I don't understand is what is the underlying message that the filmmakers are trying to tell you, because that is one thing about the Wachowskis, is that they are trying to tell you something.
Yeah, even sometimes
I can't figure out what that message is. Do you know what the message of this movie is?
No, I think that was the toughest part for me, is really figuring out exactly what it's trying to say. Because at that first part, you're like, yeah, this is an interesting thought, experiment about, the corporatization of this media and stuff, and how essentially, Neo is playing the role of the Wachowskis. This is the person who came up with the Matrix and all of this stuff. They're being heralded as these geniuses and whatnot. But ultimately, I don't, and I think that was one of their big problems coming out, and why that movie was so big, was so revolutionary, that they had the hardest time. They had the hardest, because who can live up to that? Who lives up to that first movie, They had two really great ideas at the same time. And then on top of that, they had the added function of bullet time. And so having all three of those things, having a different style of post-apocalypse that is frightening and scary, having it be that it's a computer program, we're all living in a simulation, and then you have bullet time. All three of these things all converge to make the Matrix, and it is amazing, right? Mm-hmm. After that happens, the Wachowskis are chasing that dragon, trying to find that next thing. Exactly.
And they've never gotten it. They've never found that next thing. And that's okay. That's totally fine. I don't even have that.
I was about to say, people are lucky to get the one. Right. You know what I'm saying? Much less a follow-up and have those things.
You have perfect casting in your movie. Everything works. It's perfect. But after that, they keep going. And one of the big problems is, after all the Matrix stuff, they were given a blank check. And what they did with that blank check was make insanity.
We made more weird stuff.
But as you know, I much prefer something that is absolutely bat-spit crazy to something that is just more of the same. And so I do enjoy that. If I see that they're making something else, I'm going to watch that thing, just because where are we going with this, ladies? Like that kind of thing,
Yeah. What odd turns are we going to go down? Because especially with this much time being between Matrix films and stuff, it leaves the mind to wander to where things could go. And I don't think that there's anybody that would have, written this down to paper as to what their prediction for a fourth Matrix film would be.
Well, okay, so let's keep asking the questions here. That seems to be the format that works for us lately. So we'll go with the hot hand. So we don't know what they're trying to say. We haven't figured that part out. Okay, so then to ask a less general question, is the point of the matter that that Neo himself, that Thomas is he dreaming the Matrix?
Is he a crazy person?
Or is he remembering the Matrix, right? And it seems to be that's one of the things that they're trying to put forth to you. And if that's the case, we've already seen 3 Matrixes. We know he's not crazy. So is that what they're trying to do? Are they trying to make us guess whether or not the Matrix is real? Because we already know that the Matrix is real.
I kind of like that, though. Like, I liked, in the first fourth of the movie, that kind of idea of, hey, this might be all BS. This might be just the inner workings of some crazy man who is making a video game, and we've been stuck in this guy's, the recesses of his insane mind for, years, I guess, at some point, and that's what we're trying to then decipher. I thought that was an interesting idea, but I don't think that that's where they're particularly going. I think that's the front-facing thing for all the characters that see the Thomas Anderson character, but I don't know. I don't think that that's his actual reality, so to speak.
So what you're saying is basically you thought it was a good turn that there was the question of his own sanity.
Yeah, I thought that could be an interesting way to go, and especially because Neo is, it feels like Neo is certainly the Wachowski stand-in at this point, because it is,
without a doubt,
he's the one who has constructed this Matrix and everything. They're the ones that constructed, the original Matrix, and what their thoughts were, and especially at that particular time, because Hollywood was coming in going like, what do you want to do next? What's your next big thing? We want to be involved in whatever the Matrix crew's doing, because that was wild and crazy, and at the same time too, the expectations that would have, and even within this meeting that they're having is like, oh, we're going back to the roots, we're getting back to the original Matrix sort of stuff. It seemed very interesting. I like the idea that, they could see things from an outside perspective with like these weird loops that when you see them, you're like, oh, they're redoing scenes from the Matrix. What exactly is this? But then when you learn that might be a program, it's the good and the bad Wachowski curse is what I like to call it, because it's like there's a lot of great grandiose ideas, but they may never actually work under heavy scrutiny. And I hate to make this comparison, but when you have someone like, the Wachowskis just completely changed the sci-fi genre for a bit there, where for 15 years we were getting Matrix knockoffs. Everybody was wearing black, and the scenes were somewhat similar to
everybody
what was going
wearing
there.
Stupid sunglasses, and that's all well and good. But when you look at somebody else who has changed the genre of sci-fi, the other big name here is James Cameron. And so after he makes The Terminator, and it is just so different than everything else you'd seen, and he made it for nothing. I mean, he made it for no money.
Oh yeah.
And it's so, it's just such a good movie. And then they're like, okay, what do you want to make next, James? And he knocks it out of the park again with Aliens.
It's like, I'd like to make a sequel to one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time and make it completely different than that. What kind of insane idea is that from somebody? Good props on him.
And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that James Cameron still, like, whether you like Avatar or hate Avatar, there's no getting around the fact that he's doing the thing where, like, hey, remember I did this thing? Now I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to work in a totally different part of the genre. And he is a very, very good writer. He is a monster, but he is also a very good writer. And he is able to set things up and have them pay off, and you know what he's trying to tell you in every movie. And that is something that the Wachowskis aren't great at. They're not great at setup. They're not great at payoff. And they have a lot of Chekhov's guns in their movies that aren't satisfying. And so when you look at Cameron and just, you know, like not everything's a home run. I don't know anywhere he's like, The Abyss is James Cameron's greatest movie. But at least there's an argument there of what is his best movie.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's right. But when it comes to the Wachowskis, there's only one movie. You know, there's no other movie that is that is the correct answer. Like maybe you like that little thing that they made, that little crime genre thing before they made The Matrix, but that's not their best movie. Their best movie is The Matrix. And so what I'm wondering is, are we looking at someone who is, are we looking at a group of people who basically can make one type of movie and they're just doing variations on the theme, sort of like an M. Night Shyamalan, but with The Matrix instead of just having a big twist or ending?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. It's really, and I think my comparison that I tell people about a lot is I think the Wachowskis have a lot of George Lucas in them, which is to say, fantastic ideas. There are like, you know, when George Lucas came up with Star Wars, you know, despite whatever he'll tell you nowadays, he came up with one really, really great movie, you know, and then there's a lot of people behind the scenes that will tell you exactly as such. George wanted to make more money. So George wrote developed other movies, and through those movies decided this is where I'll take these characters and stuff. None of these things were ever thought out in advance. It was just called, I had one really good movie. Now let's see if we can, you know, cobble a world around that. And
I mean, just read Splinter of the Mind's Eye and you see clearly that there was no roadmap for that thing.
No, they really didn't know where things were headed, and so you just kind of go, all right, this is as best we got here. And I think the Wachowskis and The Matrix end up in a lot of the kind of same ways. Like there's a lot of really great ideas there, and in the first one, you could argue the writing in that is probably the best amongst their movies.
Oh, without a doubt.
But like with after that movie and everything, it is just kind of a, well, the first one did well enough. We gotta let's let them do what they want to do. Let's spread your wings, fly however you feel. And you know, sometimes you get Empire Strikes Back, sometimes you get Matrix Reloaded. You know,
right? But the other point to this is that it seems like Lucas didn't want to direct anymore. You know, he was like, "Look, this isn't what my forte is. You know, I'm a world builder.
I'm a check casher, okay?"
Well, he's that too.
You get one of these fools in here, and I'll be cashing them.
I can't blame the man for that.
No.
And so, you know, he had a bunch of people around him who had no problem telling him no for those first movies. The problem is once things got out of control, and he was the boss of everything, and everyone just let him do whatever he wanted.
Rick McCullum just decided to be yes man du jour and be like, whatever you want, boss. Do what you want, boss. I love it, boss.
Monster in all of Hollywood, in my opinion.
Ugh.
He's probably a very nice man, but
I don't know. I've seen him talk in person. Really feels like a D-bag. that energy just flows off. It's like, oh, you're just one of them Hollywood boys, ain't you?
And so with the Wachowskis, I can't tell if there are people around them that are saying, you know, that they trust, who are like, you know, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. And, you know, what they kind of, I understand that they're the ones who built the kingdom. I totally understand that. And they should have final say. Totally agree with that too. But they're going to need people around them to check them from time to time that they trust. And I don't know who that is, but they should find those people.
Now, at least with this movie, and I think a couple of the other things that they've done recently, I have to look back on it. Just remember, though, we only got one half of the Wachowskis with this one. Right. We got Lana with this one, formerly Larry. And so with only half the team, but there's two other writers with this movie that have done like Sense8 and a couple of the other things the Wachowskis have been involved in. So I think those two guys are kind of like the right-hand man with all of this, of maybe filling in gaps or something. Again, I don't know the working dynamic of any of it, but there's two other guys that are labeled as the co-writers of this with Lana.
Right. But with that being said, let's go back to my original thought on this, which is that I have many questions. And so my next question for you is, look, I like Yahya Abdul as much as everybody else. I think he's all. What I don't understand is that, so he's both agent and he's Morpheus, but also
one more time. We just cut out for half a second there. Say that one more time.
So Yahya Abdul Mateen II, he's Morpheus and he's Agent Smith, but also Agent Smith is the dude from the Netflix series Mindhunter. He's the main character on Mindhunter. So like that, this is the part I don't really understand. So Agent Smith is Morpheus, is the same thing, and it's a program. It's not actually Morpheus, or Morpheus is now a program instead of a person.
Yeah, this is where like I come across the same thing where it's just like, is this movie smarter than me, or does it think it's smarter than me? And I don't know. And as I'm gonna have to call me the dumb one in this particular thing, because watching through, it's like this. As soon as you think you've got something figured out, it's another 90-degree turn, and you're like, "Wait a minute, where are we at now? What's this? Oh, we're going back over this way now. Okay, strange. I don't know. I wish I had a good answer."
and don't get me wrong, I think that CG effect is great of Morpheus as, you know, bits and pieces put together and walking around. Like, I think that's a really cool look. I like that, the way that character looks. But I can't understand what that is. Like, so is he actually the brain of Morpheus uploaded into a program with also Agent Smith, because they call him that too? Like, what is happening there?
Yeah, and then, see, that's where the whole thing feels like just this convoluted. Is the story so smart and everything, or does it just want me to think it is that is this smart? I don't know.
And while we're on this path here of that what is this thing here, the next character that I have a question about is the Merovingian. So because they basically, so the Matrix was completely shut down and then it's been dormant for 20 years. And then they reload the program back up. And that's why the Merovingian is homeless. So it's the same program.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. At least via one viewing, I don't know. Like, I want to know, but it feels like they haven't filled in enough spots for me in the bingo card for me to understand exactly what's going on. Like, it's as soon as you're like, oh, well, he's like he's the Agent Smith. Oh no, wait, he's Morpheus, but not Morpheus. And at the same time too, when I'll just call her Colleen Wing because that's just the character I remember her playing the most. When she sees him, it's just like, is she seeing a more? Because they show up in like Neo's room, right? And
right.
Like, is this in the past? But no, you've seen this stuff that was from the future from that, so it wouldn't be. It's not like this is the Young Morpheus Chronicles or anything like that. So that's not the case. But like, I don't know. She gloms onto everything really quick. She just goes like, "Oh, you're Morpheus? I know all about Morpheus. Boom, you're my best friend now. Let me give you a big old giant hug." Like,
you trust Morpheus, or Morpheus trusts you, and I trust Morpheus. The same thing that happened in the original series. But why? Why do you trust that? It's part Agent Smith, so I don't understand that. The next thing that I kind of get, maybe we can add a piece here, is the Neil Patrick Harris character is a program that is used to confine Thomas to Thomas instead of being Neo. And
right.
But the program is in the Matrix, but the program is just part of the whole. Like, it's just one program. There's a master program. It's like the way that a corporation would work. And so the corporation, so he's part of the corporation, but he also seems to not like the corporation very much, because he keeps talking bad about it while he's like, you can't beat the corporation or whatever it is, the company. And so I'm wondering, is he part of the process of keeping Thomas, or is he part of the program to open Neo back into the world? I can't figure that part out.
I feel like he's trying to keep him out of it and everything, and kind of keep the regular status quo for the Matrix itself. That's what it felt like to me, is that he was always kind of trying to put him down a path that would kind of keep him there. And of course, I think, the blue glasses are pretty much that, that key that he's wanting to, keep you in this particular spot, because, the blue and the
right.
is the
I found them very
distracting
until I figured out what they were.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like I said, good thing and bad thing, they don't hold your hand with any of this, but which is great, because you have to kind of start putting things together for yourself. But when you get to the point where you can't put some things together, it might be nice to have a little bit of a helping hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of the problems go.
And here is the big one. So did they always have in their mind that they haven't aged very much? Because they say that Neo hasn't aged much at all, and that but they don't even mention that Trinity that hasn't aged very much.
Yeah. Well, we get a couple of those reflections in glass that kind of show us that, perhaps they look older to the person that's sitting with them versus what they look like to us as the viewers.
But the problem is that those kids that she has, those kids are too young for the person that she is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. So my big question about all of this is, does that mean that all of this was put together so that Jada Pinkett Smith could wear all of that stupid old age makeup? Because no one else is wearing a ton of old age makeup. It's literally just her.
And here's the thing. Of all of these people, and God bless everyone, for your ages, y'all look great. No one's throwing stones here. But the one who looks the best out of all of them at this age is Jada Smith, man. She looks fantastic still. And they put her in this old age makeup, let's be frank, that old age makeup, not great.
No.
In today's world, that's B-level tier makeup. But she's actually good. I kind of liked her role. And
my Lord, how dare you?
How dare you? At least it was something that was different.
I don't know if it's just because I have a mat on for that lady.
I don't particularly care for her, but at least I was like, okay, at least this was
It's not even a personal thing. I think that she's just bad at her job. That's why I don't like her very much. And it's one of those things where it seems like Idris Elba has become the new Will Smith for everything. Let's get rid of Will Smith and we'll just put Idris Elba and all of that stuff. Yeah. Where is the Jada Pinkett Smith equivalent? Because we need one. Instead of using Jada, let's use somebody else who's actually a good actor.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who would fill that spot, but I don't know that we have. We need one.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is one.
But at least, I mean, this sounds so stupid, but because it's all Warner Brothers and everything, and like I said, it's royalty free to go back and get any of those clips from the other Matrix movies. I love seeing the flashback to when she was all young and good looking again. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good looking lady. Why they hide her behind all this awful makeup and some weird story. But that was the point when we got to different Zion things. This is what had me thinking about this movie in a different way. Is this might have been a better television series than it would be a sequel.
Oh boy, you wouldn't get 2 of the casts, 3 of the cast.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't even know. It doesn't even need to be a Neo or a Trinity kind of thing, to be honest. Maybe have them in as your guest star every now and then. But the world of the Matrix, as we've seen via the Animatrix and stuff, can be an interesting and different place. I mean, it was when we got more of Star Wars outside of the original kind of Skywalker trilogy and everything. When we get to your Mandalorians and Boba Fett later this year, we have a lot of the same it's the same world and everything, but it's not the same thing that we've been seeing all the time. And I feel like,
but the Matrix doesn't have the same thing that Star Wars has, where, if you slap Star Wars on something, you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. If you slap the Matrix on something, you'll get a few eyeballs. But if you slap the Matrix on something and it's got Keanu in it, then people are going to pay attention.
Yeah.
And, this is all about raising up that IP for them. And they're probably, they were fairly successful in making something new that isn't making people insane,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, there's people who don't like it, but it isn't fundamentally across the board. Everyone hates this thing, which is what that last Matrix movie was for sure. Like, people were kind of like, let's see how this ends with Reloaded. But when it came to the third one, people were like, this is terrible and we hate this.
Let's see the architect tell us a little bit more about this, that, and the other.
And so now that you have this new one that people don't necessarily hate, like, people like it. I think that people are giving a pass to Keanu that they wouldn't give a lot of other people.
I think that is absolutely true.
And I think that it is a well-deserved pass. But I think that if they're going to keep this continuing on, which they clearly want to do because they leave it so open-ended, they're going to have to come up with a new game plan. I mean, you probably can get Keanu for 2 more. Why not? But you are going to be spending a whole lot more money than you did for this one.
Isn't it crazy how, like, and I thought for a couple of years here, he was just doing it because otherwise he would look old, having like the long hair and the beard and everything. But I gotta say, you put him over there into the world of the Matrix with the shaved head and face and everything. He can still rock that. I
think that they sweetened him up a bit, though.
You do?
I do. Because remember how kind of off-putting it was when you first see him as Bill.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, he looks old. Without that beard, he looks like an old man, or older.
Yeah.
I think that they sweetened him up a bit.
Okay. I could, because I was just like, I was under the impression that he had all this crap to just be like, nah, I'm not nearly as old as I really look. But then when it was off, I'm like, well, he looks 10 years younger than he normally would. Why would he go? Why would he go towards this? He looks a lot better. Like, sure, the jawline isn't as defined. You're getting up there in age.
Well, that'd be impossible. I mean, he was so impossibly handsome.
Yeah, but it's fine. I feel okay. Let's talk about this for a second because, like you said, one of the key pillars of the trifecta that was the Matrix and making that what it was bullet time. Bullet time was the thing where everybody was like, bro, what is this? I ain't never seen nothing like this before. And by the way, the John Gueda, I think is how his name's pronounced, the guy who more or less is credited with inventing bullet time, was like one of the programmers or whatever in like kind of a background scene or something and like that. I thought that was kind of cute.
That's neat.
They're like, oh, you brought that guy back and stuff. He hasn't really done anything since then, so I don't know. But so their kind of quote unquote killer app for this one was like their new kind of bullet time, which was more of the slow everything down sort of deal. What do you think about that?
I don't think that it is a groundbreaking thing. I don't think that it's going to make people stand up and notice. I think it's fine.
It was neat looking, but like it really didn't have that ultimate kind of. I think they thought it looked way cooler than it actually looked. Like
I don't think they did. I don't think that they even attempted to outdo what they had already done, because the technology, the WoW technology, it's not like something you can just invent. You know what I mean? Like it has to be perfect for that moment, and they just don't have it. Like they don't have the new thing where you're just like, wow, I have never seen anything like that before. I think that if they wanted to do that, the way that the only thing that would make me stand up and take notice is if they had like that guy who is an amazing drone pilot.
Yeah.
Because the drone pilot that they have on this is the same guy that I've done a Stallone connection with before, and he's great. But you need the guy who can go through the bowling alley.
Yeah.
You need the guy who can go threw the tire out the window up the side of, like, you need that guy. And they don't have it. They didn't have that guy.
No, visually there wasn't anything that, like that first Matrix movie, made you sit up in your chair and go, "Wait a second, what is this now?" Because that's what I think ultimately, also even with the sequels to the Matrix, is that's what people wanted, was to not only have that story moment, but that visual wow that's like, what hold on, that we're doing something that no one's ever done before. And it's tough to do that these days. I mean, every single day it gets tougher to do it.
It is. And the one thing about the Matrix, the first Matrix movie, is that it feels like athletic filmmaking, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the camera is very much part of the feel of those movies. And you can't do the thing that the first one did, where everything is blue and green.
But at the same time, too, and like
for 20 years.
But it doesn't even feel like it's related to those movies, even when we go into other things. And that's what kills me about this. And I do not like the cinematography on this movie at all. I think it looks like garbage. I think there's fight scenes that were shot horribly. That was one of the things that you say what you will about those first Matrix movies, but those movies were fight choreographed by the great Yin Wu Ping, who is like a legend for a reason. And those fight scenes were fantastic. I think the fight scenes here kind of sucked. I thought they were shot terribly. And that was one of my biggest problems, is that especially when it came to like the martial arts kind of stuff, it was lackluster. And the things that were there were things that, we were half or more recreating from previous movies. And it's like, all right, I mean, you've done that before. You're doing it again, the echoes of the past, blah, 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 whatever kind of BS you want to rub on that to try to make it, not stink as much. I just didn't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that they do well in this thing is that they have they tickle those feelers of, oh, this is familiar, mm-hmm. But they're not beating you over the head with the familiarity of it all, like Star Wars tends to do at times. Specifically Rogue One, it's just like, hey, you remember this character? Like there's a whole lot of that.
Yeah, it's not quite that bad. It's not like Biggs USOB or something like that. It's not quite there. But the fact that,
unfortunately for this movie, we just saw the master class of how to do that a week before with the Spider-Man movie.
It really is about the worst time for this movie to come. If this had been like a mid to late January movie, it might have done better. It might have done better at the box office. And again, like you said, everybody saw Spider-Man, and Spider-Man just murdered. It was so good. Everyone agrees that movie is good. Even the people that are like, it's maybe not the best movie in the world, but I still liked it a whole bunch. I mean, everybody still loved that movie. So following that up 1 week later is a tough road to hoe for anybody, to be honest. For sure.
And I mean, quite honestly, the love affair that America has for Spider-Man is not even close to the love affair of the Matrix. I mean, there are people who their entire life is about Spider-Man. There's no one who their entire life is about the Matrix, at least not anymore.
Yeah,
I know that there are a bunch of teenage boys in the late 90s, early 2000s who that was the case. But after that third one, people were like, well, maybe the Matrix isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of that happening with this movie, where I think that the people who make this movie, they know it's almost like the Star Trek reboot. Mm-hmm. That first one, the first J.J. Abrams one, where it was clear that J.J. Abrams and the people who wrote that, Kurtzman and Orci, they were like, oh, well, here's the things that everybody knows about Star Trek, but they didn't get the little nuances correct. Like Kirk is a ladies' man and he's hot-headed and all that stuff. And that's true to a point, but it's not who that character ultimately is. And it feels like that's kind of what they were doing with this movie, where the Keanu Reeves of the original Matrix is not the same man as he is now. And so it feels like they still wanted to make him dumb. And how do we do that? Oh, the way we do that is we make him a little crazy. And that's
Yeah.
and that doesn't work. That does not work for this character. We've gotten to a point where everybody loves Keanu, and they should, because he's great. But it's a different Keanu than the one from 2003, the last time we saw him.
Yeah.
And so they needed to do something about that instead of what they ultimately did, which is let's make him the same guy from 20 years ago, only, a little older.
And a little forgetful. What's going on again, Grandpa? I don't know.
Yes. And it just doesn't work for me. This movie isn't terrible. I know I keep picking on this because I have so many questions about this movie, but that's because I legitimately have questions.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, idiots, why did you do this? Hey, idiots, why did you do this? It's legitimate questions.
More like, I don't get it.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of me not getting this movie. And so I think that, what I'm going to run into in the future is that if there's no more Matrixes, and I can't imagine that to be the case, I would imagine that there's going to be some watered down version of the Matrix coming our way in the next few years here.
I mean, they clearly were threatening to do it with this one if they didn't get involved. So, I so think that is straight out of reality, that they're just like, all right, put it in there, because that's what happened.
Yeah, but I can't figure out what they're trying to say. I mean, ultimately, that is my biggest question mark. What are you trying to tell me with this movie?
All roads lead to home.
Well, I know ultimately it's something about mental health, but I don't understand what that is.
Part of me felt like it was just like it was basically Wachowski, hey, look, we did this thing. It was huge. We're not even 100% sure why it hit exactly like what it did. We'll try our best because, nothing. I don't want to. This is a little reductive, but go with me. The other things that we've done have not hit the heights that The Matrix did, so we'll go back to this and we'll kind of make an interesting, weird sort of meta commentary about it, which I enjoy. I really love the idea of that, and I think this is one that you need to see at least a couple of times to try to figure out exactly what they're saying, because it's certainly not on Front Street like you would hope it would be. Because that was, at least with The Matrix, that was like an easy thought experiment, was the world that you know is not the world that you know. You're living in some sort of simulation, and you're this battery for this thing that's going on, but you can break out of that. That's a quick elevator pitch for that. This, I don't know how you elevator pitch this in 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it's got to be something more than we're stronger together.
Yeah, it's like, so what? Agreed, but what are you doing with it?
Right.
What are you doing with it? And are these star-crossed lovers who are always bound to find each other through time and space and blah 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 blah? I mean, not that we haven't seen that a million times, but you know, okay.
Hancock did it better.
Hey, listen, I don't hate Hancock like a lot of people do. Which I still can't believe. Supposedly we still haven't done on this show. I don't know how that's possible.
That can't be true.
I still feel like we did that. I'm almost like Bruce swears up and down we haven't done it, but. I'm not looking through 400 shows to figure out where it is.
I will. I'll look through it.
Well, before we get to our review and what our Patreon supporters thought about this film, we need to ask ourselves one very important question: is how does this movie relate back to one Sylvester Stallone?
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Sylvester, The Matrix feels like something that's just not your thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't see you walking out of a movie theater having just seen The Matrix and saying to yourself, that movie is a triumph.
I love it.
That, of course, doesn't mean that you aren't connected to The Matrix Resurrections. In fact, it's the opposite, because the script supervisor for this movie is a guy named Mark Valenzuela. That's it. Valenzuela. Mark Valenzuela Jones. And if this name sounds familiar to you, even though I butchered it, it should. He was also the script supervisor on your movie from earlier this year, The Suicide Squad, which is the only movie this year that answers the question, what if Idris Elba replaces Will Smith in everything? As far as I can tell, MVJ got his first job working on the best sports movie of the last 10 years, Moneyball, which also doesn't feel like your kind of movie. A movie where the main characters don't actually play baseball and there's scene after scene of people talking about numbers and base run efficiency. Where's the sequel starring B-grade Brad Pitt, or as I like to call him, Neil Patrick Harris? Don't hate me. He is. And Brad Pitt seems like one of those guys that you probably talked a lot of crap about when he was up and coming, which I get. I did too. And I didn't make nearly the money you did in the 90s or in any other decade for that matter. But at this point, you're probably asking yourself what I think the perfect Stallone movie might be. And I'm glad you asked because I figured it out this week. I think your perfect movie of the last few years is Aquaman. It's got your buddy Dolph Lundgren. It's about a big muscly guy who everyone in the movie thinks is the coolest. And he says things like, my man, and appears to have the movie appears to have been written by a 14-year-old. And everyone who lives in Atlantis is tough. And then there's these guys who are monsters and they live in the trench. And then he gets a magical pitchfork that lets him talk to fish. Now, if that doesn't sound like a 90s Stallone movie, I don't know what does. Now, before you ask yourself, what does Aquaman have to do with Mark Valenzuela Jones? Let me cut you off of the past. Nothing. But I wanted to bring it up because I think it's a shame you never worked on Aquaman, and hopefully you'll be in the next one or the one after that, maybe as the king of the shrimps or something. I don't know. I'm not much of an Aquaman fan. And there you have it, Mr. Stallone. This week's Stallone connection is script supervisor Mark Valenzuela Jones. I'll try to do better next week. I hope you had a good Christmas. Talk to you soon. Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
How would you like to be a script supervisor on a Stallone film? And they're like, I didn't understand what he was saying. I got to go. Excuse me, Mr. Stallone, what? I said all the words right. Shut up.
I can tell you that there is a very famous actor on a show that my friend was working on. And the script supervisor has stopped trying to make it all make sense because the actor doesn't even bother learning lines anymore and just says what the actor wants. And so the script supervisor just writes down notes like, he said this time. He said this time. Good luck. Like he says, this is what she writes down to the editors all the time. It's pretty amazing.
Believe it or not, this was the script we gave him. Now, these words don't come out of his mouth, but this is what we gave him to say.
It's not on her head. You know, I mean, she's doing her best.
Excuse me, Mr. AD, should we talk to just no. Well, here at Here Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you like that, check out our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. And let's see what our folks over at our Patreon supporters
please.
This movie. Joe says, didn't love it, didn't hate it, but my least favorite of the franchise. They did some interesting things with a few of the characters, and Jessica Henwick was awesome. Justin says, it had some bright spots, but this movie was, as I heard someone put it earlier this week, aggressively mediocre. They tried for 3 films to capture the magic of that first one, and they just can't seem to do it. Thomas said, The Matrix should have ended after the first one. Agreed.
Agreed.
And I think the same thing with like Austin Powers. It's like, man, if you'd have stopped at one movie, you'd have had a perfect thing. I don't know. I don't either.
The second movie is also great. It's when there's no more ideas and he goes to make the third one. That's when it gets off the rails. But he had some really good ideas.
I feel they recycled way too much for that second one. Kevin says, over the years, The Matrix has become so meta. Nothing could hold a candle to it. The only way through was to burn it all down by analyzing it and everything said about the original and turning that on its head. In the end, we're shown the original was not as perfect as we remember it. Matrix Resurrections for Kevin is a Dick Grayson. Nate says, Nate says, at first I really enjoyed the nostalgic aspect of seeing all the familiar faces again, but that just wasn't enough to carry the story for me. Also, I don't think I could ever find Doogie Howser menacing. The lack of a formidable big bad made it a weaker movie for me as well. And Dave actually has a little bit different from everybody else here. Dave says, the new Morpheus, Satie, and Smith did a great job. Doogie Howser was killer as the analyst. The homeless Merovingian was a hoot. I liked Bugs and Sequoia, is that the name?
Yeah, Sequoia.
And, of course, any chance to see Christina Ricci. As for the plot, I enjoyed the meta nature of it. It reminded me a bit of Existence, the Matrix within the Matrix. It turtles all the way down. Matrix or the Existence was interesting because Existence came out on pretty much the exact same time that the Matrix did.
All three of those did, because Dark City did also.
Yeah, and that was what we looked at the time, was like this David Cronenberg movie that was they marketed it as just like the Matrix or something along those lines. That's how they build it, and we're like, all right, David Cronenberg, like the Matrix, sure. Jude Law and everything, and it was good. It's a very interesting, weird movie, and if you've ever wanted to see somebody play video games with flesh controllers, Existence is your bag. But he seemed to like it. I think Dave liked it the most out of all of our listeners here and everything. But we had a single Dick Grayson, but by and large, everybody pretty much joined in on Damian Wayne here. Damian Wayne for the win for these guys. So, Sean, where does the Matrix Resurrections? Jeez Louise, fall in the Robin rating system for you?
For me, it's also a Damian Wayne. It's one of those things, and it's a low one. It's one of those movies where I didn't need this. I watched it. It didn't make me angry. I can tell you that I'm going to forget that there was a fourth Matrix movie if they don't do anything else with this property. It does not induce the anger of a Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, but it is just the textbook definition of mediocrity, in my opinion. So it's a Damian Wayne.
Yeah, for me, after one viewing, I'm going to go Stephanie Brown. I feel like I could jump up to a Damian Wayne if indeed, like, upon subsequent viewings, I kind of get it a little bit more. And movies have happened like that. I think everybody's had those movies where, like, maybe you don't get it the first time, and sometimes it takes a second or third time for you to go like, oh, I understand this. It was like Tenet was that way for me. I left the first time watching that going like, I think I like that, but I don't really know. And like, it took me to like the third time to go like, oh, okay, I get this. I understand this. I do like this movie. I just needed to wrap my head around it. And I feel like this movie has the potential to be like that. But I'm not. I saw Tenet 3 times in the theater. I don't think I'm seeing this 3 times in the theater. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know. So yeah, that's a Stephanie Brown for me. Stephanie Brown, Tim Drake, or excuse me, Damian Wayne rather. So not too bad. Yeah. Next week we are going back to the theater because we had not only did this movie not make money at the box office this weekend, another movie didn't make box office money this weekend, and that is the third Kingsman movie entitled The Kingsman.
Boy, it's like that second one was really awful and no one cares.
So they're like, let's make a third one. So I walked into a theater, I watched like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm sure these were not indicative of what the entire film was, because it was like that scene that you see with Rasputin walking in and stuff like that, and Ray Fiennes just going like, "You get me a drink, fool," and or something along those lines. So I'm like, I don't know. Well, but we'll cover all of that next week. In the meantime, Sean, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Well, we have a podcast called Hawkeye 30 Questions, where we review each episode of the TV series Hawkeye. This is our final week because it's the final episode. And then we go on to another project the next week, don't we, Adam?
We do indeed, because right after we wrap that up, Marvel and Disney and all of those people just go like, oh no, you doing another show right away, fool. You don't get no time to rest. So we're doing Book of Boba Fett. So if you're subscribed to our Mandalorian 30 Questions podcast, and guess what? Boba Fett, Mandalorian, going on the Mandalorian 30 Questions feed. So we'll be talking all about the Book of Boba Fett, which starts on the 29th. So as soon as we drop one, bang, bing, boom, we're getting another one. And I feel like if Disney has their way, they'll continue on this jag as long as they can, where it's just like, all right, this one thing in it, bam, here's your next thing. Or, I figure, I don't know if any particulars have been released as to when things are coming out there, but, I figure come January, February, Miss Marvel, they've already shot all that, I believe, at this point. And so, like, we're going to start, catching a couple clips here every now and then, and I'm excited for them, because so far with all of these Marvel television shows, so darn good. So we'll continue on about that. So check us out. If you're already subscribed on Mandalorian 30 Questions, you'll have that coming down your feed anyways. And if you're not, look it up. Look up 30 Questions wherever you find podcasts, and you'll find all of our 30 Questions podcasts. Subscribe to those, review them, a whole deal. That is it, everyone. Oh, and of course, with Bruce, go check out Anime Dad there on YouTube. Go check out Bruce Leslie on YouTube. All the links and stuff are in the show notes for all that Anime.io, all those good things. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking The Kingsman for Sweet Chauncey Kovacs from the internet, the absent Bruce Leslie. I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
In the white room with black curtains near the station.